Hi, Beru. Welcome to Director's Notes.
Cool. Good to be here.
Here to talk about your short film, Lions.
Yes.
The film, it speaks to so many of sort of the horrific situations that are faced by people today. How did you come to be telling this story?
I was initially thinking about my own experiences of, coming to London when I was a kid, and the kind of the barriers around language, and just thinking about the expectations that one has of what London could be like, and the reality of it. And so I was just thinking a lot about, this thing of expectation and reality of the migrants' experience, and in the kind of post-Brexit period where so many people are feeling disenfranchised, whether it's migrants, immigrants, whether economic or political, or even white working class people, just like across the board. There's a feeling of just people feeling like, you know, disenfranchised, and I just was really inspired to try to tell a story that that explores the kind of human aspect, of this experience.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really powerful, and language, as you said, that is one thing that really, spoke to me in the film. So it's this miscommunication, it's, wanting to speak English in the home but not knowing. How was it to direct something with all those different languages?
Yeah, it was amazing. Like I was so lucky to have had just like these incredible actors, and casting wise, like it was really important. One of the reasons why the family was Congolese was really to challenge the kind of racist uh slur or trope that says, learn how to speak the language or learn how to speak English. Actually, you know to focus on a young protagonist who is bilingual. She speaks French and she speaks Lingala,
Mm.
and she's learning English. Do you know what I mean? So I really wanted to kind of hone in on like the reality of so many immigrants who are bilingual,
Yeah.
and so and actually so we're very lucky when we got Melodie, who plays Rosie, who is Congolese, and Winnie, who plays Grace, who's also Congolese, and Kurt, who plays Moses, incredible actor. He's originally from Cameroon, and you know, Melodie and Winnie really helped us, with the dialect to really kind of get the Lingala right, and Kurt learned to speak the lines in dialect as well, and then just having the French element as well was amazing. That Melody was also like very fluent in French, so it was very really helped me, because my languages is English and that's my languages, so it was so much of it was like found in rehearsals. Actually, so much of it was found in rehearsals, and also the way we worked was really about facilitating a space in which that actors could respond to behavior. Do you see what I'm saying? So it wasn't so like it wasn't. Of course, language was an obstacle, and it was like the basis of the conflict. But you know, in preparation to in the prep work as we're preparing to shoot in rehearsals, when we were workshopping, so much of like the improvised work was really about responding to behavior and kind of uh, working in a way that was instinctive. So it kind of made it made it feel realistic that people could overlap in dialogue, and what they're responding to what the other person was doing, rather than always what the other person was saying.
Yeah, I think you just hearing you talk about that, you see that as well so strongly when the guys come in,
Mm.
and they obviously, it's their little scam they've got going, they want to take advantage of her, and So like you're saying, there's that language barrier, but then there's like that physical, you know, barrier when he's like, you know, don't make me hit a woman.
Yeah, yeah. You know, like that interesting, because I was so impressed with like what Morgan did, Morgan Watkins, the actor, because that moment was improvised. You know, that was
Okay.
not, that moment was improvised. Uh, uh, there was a few moments in that scene because it was like it was so alive, that scene, and like we wanted to kind of find, obviously, like, you know, like safety was paramount, you know, it was essential, and within that kind of safe space we had created, to find a sense of like danger within the scene. And so, like, you know, it was very much like we were quite free with the way we were shooting that scene, and I wanted to give the actors space to pursue the thing that they wanted, you know, and the character that Morgan was playing, you know, Liam, the younger one, you know, who feels most aggrieved by like how disenfranchised he is in a space that he feels should be his as well, you know, and so in pursuing that, it's just kind of like he found, you know, these amazing lines that just express this, you know, rage and vulnerability as well,
Yeah.
which yeah, I really I love working like that. I love working in, you know, collaboratively with actors because you know, the offerings that come about are, you know, moments of just truth, you know, and that was, you know, one of those moments in the perspective of that character,
That's
you
beautiful.
know.
Yeah, you're
Yeah,
saying that's improvised. I mean, and it's such a strong part of the film. So
yeah,
yeah, that's testament to your actors as well.
yeah, you know, and because and as you know, another moment in that scene was just like the way the character, you know, the young character Liam, who's played by Morgan, you know, the way describes the estate. You know, like he once knew the people that lived in the estate, and now it's like full of like immigrants. Like, you know, the way he says that, it's just kind of like, wow, you know, it's so, it reveals like a kind of point of view that's really interesting. And I think that's really worth looking at and thinking about in understanding where a character like that is coming from, you know, and you know how we achieved that was I worked, you know, really closely with all the actors, and they were incredibly generous with their time, and you know, with Morgan, you know, we spent time just really thinking about the biography of this character,
Mm.
you know, like really building like who he is, where he comes from. You know, we even walked around, like, you know, we grew up in the same area in northwest London, so we grew up. We walked around those spaces and, you know, looked at the way in which those spaces had changed. And as we were doing that, you know, we were also thinking about a character like Liam and how he would relate to you know, spaces that he's familiar with and how they would have changed as well. And it kind of, you know, because all of that was there, I could really trust the actors to just kind of be free with it, because the material that they had prepared was so in depth and you know, and so rich.
Yeah. I mean, you mentioned the flats, and that was something, you know, where did you find them? How did you know that was the right location? Because they play their own character entirely.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You know, like I love council estates. I think there's, you know, there's such beauty in so many council estates, you know, and yeah, it's just the architecture, like sometimes the brutalist architecture, this of many estates, I think are incredible. And like the whole kind of thinking behind council estates initially was to create like communal spaces and kind of like, you know, very like inclusive ways of living. Obviously that it didn't turn out like that, because you know, of course it didn't, and so many council estates are deprived, and one, I think too easily people associate estates with poverty and like you know, suffering and all that. But I'm actually interested in showing the other side of that as well, which is, the joy and the kind of beauty and the kind of like the way in which people can thrive in those spaces. Because I grew up in those spaces, and I was very happy growing up in those spaces. And so it was an incredible process, just searching, looking at different estates, kind of scouting, and then suddenly finding Samuda estate. That's what it was, and the thing that was amazing about this estate was like it was the backdrop. The backdrop was like the gleaming kind of like buildings of like the financial districts. Do you know what I mean? A juxtaposition of like wealth and poverty was just like, and you can see it in one frame. And I thought, wow, this really says so much about our society. And also what was amazing about those buildings was like the windows and because the windows are just such an important part of the narrative in the film. When we looked at those kind of locations, the flat just had like so much space that we could work with to explore this idea of like window cleaners, and also there was like a balcony which gave us like real possibilities of like working on both sides of the glass. So yeah, it's amazing. I like, because I really do believe, of course it's a very obvious thing to say, that buildings and spaces are essential characters in films, and the way characters interact with them, just reveal so much.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh
Yeah.
no, 100%. It's the playground for the
Yeah.
story to sort of, be told. And you see that as well, that moment where she's looking out the window and she can see their van there, and that moment she realizes that they're living there. It's all in together. It really is beautiful.
Yeah.
So one thing I love, you flip so many different things on their heads. So like,
Mm.
Grace is going to work for a rich black family. You've got
Mm.
window cleaners who are actually homeless. You've
Mm.
got the person who is threatened, then bringing food and peace offering. Tell me
Mm.
about that. What interests you about that kind of, yeah, throwing things
I,
on the head?
yeah, it's um I think it's really, something that's really important to me is like multiple narratives. You know, I think it's so important that one engages with, when thinking about the immigrant experience, for example, the multiple narratives of the immigrant experience. So, Miss Bello, who Grace works for, lives in that amazing house, incredible house, like just, this kind of sculptural.
Yeah.
And she's a wealthy woman. It's a wealthy West African family who are immigrants, but their immigrant experience is, profoundly different to that of Grace and Rosie. And it's like, I think, I just want to engage with narratives that are truthful. And the truthful narrative is like, that is also how, like one side of it. And with the window cleaners, it's like, what does it feel like for people to know this city as their home? To feel like natives of this city, and yet to have no home. What's that like? Because that's also a reality. And I feel like it's important to humanize characters that might be perceived as villains. I think it's really problematic when, for example, characters like the window cleaners, who are ultimately engaged in the very difficult business of surviving in a very hostile environment themselves. It's like, I think it's important to humanize them and see where what their reality is. Often the starting point for those characters actually was thinking about servicemen who, like fight these wars, and end up like homeless, and this idea of like what you give for your country and what does your country give you back, or how does your country look after you, and ultimately, when people don't have like the safety net, the economic safety net, it's like they too become kind of exiles in their own countries, and I was really interested in humanizing those characters. But the point I really want to make is how we have, there's so much we have in common, there's so much we have in common, then there's so much that connects us and unites us, then separates us, you know.
Mm.
So the family, Congolese family, who are in a very precarious situation, like, you know, they're being exploited by this scrupulous landlord. Their asylum claim has been rejected. Like, they don't know what, you know, they're trying to figure out how they're going to survive. But the window cleaners as well are also in a very similar situation. So it's like we're in the same boat, actually, you
Yeah.
know. And it's like, you know, and that final moment is, it's a small gesture, but that small gesture is about recognizing our common humanity, you know, recognizing our shared humanity. Actually, the villain or the antagonist is the hostile environment, you know, the system that actually seeks to divide groups and says, oh, that's the person that's taking your jobs and your homes. This is the person that's you know, being racist and attacking you. But actually, it's like, it's you know, we need to kind of pay attention to the environment and the political environment and the you know, economic realities that create these you know, situations. So that moment of recognition was what I was working towards.
Yeah. I mean, of course, you watch these things and you think about that. You know, do you think those two men want to be doing that? You know, going around and pretending to wash people's windows for cash, and there's so many of these situations that, yeah, then there's no choice. There really isn't, and
Yeah,
that's beautifully portrayed.
yeah, thank you.
I wanted to go back to as well. So the buildings and the interiors, a lot of it is shot either at nighttime or it's all quite dark and heavy and somber.
Mm.
What lighting did you have? What setups did you have sort of to get that right? Yeah, there's that pervading threat in the lighting as well.
Yeah, you know, like we tried to use. I mean, we shot like in February, like early
It's nice and
February.
grey anyway.
So it was kind of nice and great, and we tried to use as much like available light as possible. Tried to use as much natural light as possible. You know, and there's something about the lighting on those estates, and it's just like, it's so atmospheric. You
Yeah.
know, it's so kind of like, you know, there's kind of this orangey kind of hue to those spaces that is was kind of, you know, like available to us. But the DP, in a way, is, I mean, he is extraordinary, really extraordinary. Like how he was able to create something that had a lot of depth. You know, the image he was able to capture, and with minimal lighting, but also with the, you know, the emphasis being kind of available lighting and natural lighting. There was, somehow we were able to kind of find the depth in the image.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, and there's, you know, I was initially quite worried about shooting at a time when like the daylight was going to be so limited, but it it really worked. It really worked. Like it gave it kind of, you know, the gray kind of bluish kind of
Yeah.
hue, kind of you know, added to the stories, that atmosphere. Yeah.
It does, and it fits the general mood of everything and the characters and their struggle. I mean, and it just it does. It makes it a very typical British story as well. That's sort of that pervasive, awful grey.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and there's something as well, kind of really interesting, isn't it? Isn't there, like about like that image, like although it's grey and although it seems a bit bleak, it's also beautiful,
Yeah,
you know, and that's also something that we were thinking about. And you know, part of that really was thinking about, like, you know, the bodies in the space. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the focus, you know, like, you know, and how those bodies are kind of lit, and how they occupy the space, and also everything being motivated by movement, you know. It was really like, that was something that when we were planning the, you know, the shoot, we were talking a lot about, which is, you know, it being led by the actors,
Mm.
by the way the actors were moving, you know, and somehow, you know, when we trusted that and led with that, it really kind of created these images that were focused on, you know, on truthful expressions, actually.
Yeah. So because so much was improvised, were you shooting for longer? How long was all your production?
Oh my God.
The big question.
Yeah, no, like because you know, like the script took a while. You know, like obviously, you know, the process of like getting funding, etc. Like, you know, notes, like it took a while. But once we had the script, you know, we workshopped the script with the actors, and part of the casting process actually was also like workshopping like scenes and things like that. And the shoot in the end was like 4 days. You know, we
Okay.
had a 4 day shoot, um, but because of the amount of workshopping we had done, and because of the amount of like, I think rehearsals is very tricky. Like, I'm very reluctant to rehearse scenes because you know you lose the kind of like discovery and you lose the kind of freshness
Yeah.
and the surprise. So, but instead of we did rehearse the scenes so the actors like knew the scenes inside out, but like beyond the scenes it was more about like improvising around the scenes that really helped us, you know. And so when by the time we got to the shoot, it was super tight. um there was that one scene, you know, where the confrontation scene in the first one, in which it needed to be improvised because we needed to find a sense of like danger, etc. um, but on the whole, you know, we stayed true to the script, you know, with like just allowing space for scenes that needed, you know, improvisation.
Hmm.
Um,
There we go. Workshopping's the answer.
Definitely, yeah, yeah, well, absolutely, absolutely, because you know, I think once actors are feel a sense of authority over the character, feel a sense of ownership over the character, then you know they make the character human. They make the character three-dimensional. Do you know what I mean? It just, you know, when if it's just like words on a page that they learn, and then it's like you know, they're told where to stand and how to move, and it's like you block the scene and they deliver the lines. That's one way of doing it, but for me, a far more exciting way of doing it is actually when, you know, to spend time workshopping who is this person, what is this scene like, you know, what is this relationship, and then it becomes a collaboration, you know,
Yeah.
with the act. Yeah, and that's
And
really
then,
exciting.
yeah, and that shows through. It really does. All of the depth and, you know, just the soul in the actors as well, which is what you need for this kind of story.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's like for it to feel lived in, like,
Hmm.
you know, that feeling, and so much of it is like just the relationships, you know, um, and I think the work that's done beyond just like the shoot and before the shoot, and you know, yeah, I just think we're very lucky to have like actors that worked in that way, you know.
And
Yeah.
you received your funding, so is it BFI and Channel 4?
So it's CNC in France
Okay.
and BFI Network, Film London BFI Network. So we had two, both producers were based in France.
Mhm.
Uh, one of our producers is British, but at the time was in France, and uh, the other producer was, you know, a French producer. So we were lucky to have access to like really great funding from CNC,
Yeah,
and yeah, it was incredible actually. The way in which they supported the project. Yeah.
good. And then you've got your BIFA nomination,
Yes.
the Best British Short. Tell me, what does that mean? What does that mean to you as a filmmaker?
It means so much, you know. It really does. It really does. It's been like such a process. You know, it's been like an incredible process, and like for me, as you know, as I was saying, working with the actors and working with the crew, and like, you know, the process of actually making the film has just been such a joyous experience, you know, and collaborating with incredible people has just been such a joyous experience. And it's like it's such a privilege to be nominated. You know, it's such a privilege to be like, you know, being recognized for, you know, doing something that I just absolutely love doing. You know, it's an incredible privilege, actually. And I feel really inspired. I feel super inspired, and you know, I just want to get back on set and make another film.
Are you writing something at the moment?
I'm working on some scripts at the moment. Yeah, like you know, like early stages. You know, I'm working on a couple of scripts and
Or shorts?
feature films. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, features and yeah, like I just feel really inspired to make something, you know, that's long form. And yeah, because I mean that's the next challenge, you know.
Go for it. Well, best of luck.
Yeah, thank you so much.